Good morning, everyone. My name's Kelly Maynard. I'm the Head of Distribution and Partnerships for Business Events Australia. Thank you for joining our product webinar today. This is the second in 3 webinars we're doing with the Signature Experiences of Australia Collective. So I'm delighted today that we have 2 interesting collective product that'll give you an update. And this is part of our domestic business event strategy, really wanting to show you some product you may not be aware of around Australia and that'll really help enhance any incentive or conference program and opportunities to think about for pre and post. So hopefully you get some value, and I'm delighted today we have 2 of the executive officers of the collectives joining us. Cultural Attractions, we have Jane Ross, and Discover Aboriginal Experiences, we have Nicole Mitchell. So little bit of housekeeping. We're going to spend some time looking at each of the 2 product presentations. There will be a chance for questions at the end, so feel free to put your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll answer those at the end of each presentation and any other questions you have at the end. So thank you for your time, and firstly I'm going to introduce Jane from Cultural Attractions, and we are recording this session as well, so you'll be able to access it after the webinar. So over to you, Jane.
Great, thank you, Kelly, and hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining today. I'm just waiting for that slide to change. And Adam, can you give me access, please, just to the slides? Great, thank you. Okay, so I might start talking just while this is having a bit of a chug along, but basically I'm the Executive Officer for Cultural Attractions of Australia. Cultural Attractions of Australia is a collective of 18 of Australia's cultural, iconic cultural attractions, and it spans a range of different segments. So arts, visual arts, performing arts, our cultural heritage, and also our sporting events. Now this is just taking a little bit longer. So in terms of Australia's culture, I did want to give just some background to say that Australia really has a lot to say when it comes to its cultural attractions. We're really incomparable with Europe or America, but in really unique and I suppose contemporary ways. So on one level, we've got one of the oldest cultures in Australia, and on another we've got one of the newest cultures in Australia. So really what we see in these iconic cultural attractions, hooray, is a melting pot of what makes us us today. And in terms of our collective, that's really what we're looking to communicate across these 18 members. So one of our members is the UNESCO World Heritage listed Sydney Opera House, and I will talk to some of their experiences a bit later on. I must apologise, this is really, here we go, very good. So here's Port Arthur Historic Site. This is one of the most pristine convict sites in Australia. I should mention some of these you will already be well familiar with, others you may not. So in some respects, it's a bit of a refresh for you, a reintroduction. And I hope by sharing some of the Cultural Attractions of Australia experiences, it also sort of ignites some ideas for you in terms of the kind of experiences and kind of meetings that you might want to pull together. I suppose Cultural Attractions of Australia can offer some of those out of the box experiences that really make an itinerary special. So I'm just trying to move to the next slide. Here we go. So this is National Gallery of Victoria, and many of you will have used National Gallery of Victoria before, or alternatively would be well aware of it. As you can see here, this is a pre and after hours experience where you actually get to eat in the gallery spaces as well. Really premium experience, and something that the National Gallery of Victoria do so well. I'll just move to the next slide. So in terms of what I was saying before, we cover off museums. This is Mona. Mona is one of the, well, it's the largest collection of privately owned collection of artwork anywhere in Australia that's on display, and so unique. And just moving to the next, we cover off the sport, MCG and Adelaide Oval. Performing arts, this is Arts Centre Melbourne, Sydney Opera House, as I mentioned before. Arts Centre Melbourne, just as a bit of a pointer here, that stage there is a stage on the State Theatre. This is a 2,000 seat theatre. Arts Centre Melbourne is actually Australia's largest performing arts centre. Two beautiful theatres, the Concert Hall and this one, the State Theatre, but they have been known to do set up meals and dining experiences and events on the stage there. There's also some images that I've got a bit later on to show you. We've also got a whole range of heritage members as well. This is the Australian War Memorial. The Australian War Memorial is one of the most significant museums for commemoration anywhere in the world. A totally beautiful experience. It really does focus on commemoration over and above the actions on the battlefields themselves. And there's also quite a few other heritage members that we have, which I'll talk to in a minute as well. So we've got 18 members, as I've mentioned, all across Australia. Except for Northern Territory, we're working on that and really hoping to get a member on there. But we're really well placed in a lot of the other states. And moving on again. So in terms of the kind of experiences that we offer, a lot of the time you might actually look at the venues themselves and the opportunities that you have to take people. People may well be familiar with the attractions themselves, but definitely not familiar with these kind of behind the scenes opportunities that these members offer. And I think one thing that's been really pleasing, we launched only in April last year, but all of our members are members because they're really keen to open their doors and to show their attractions in a different way. And I think absolutely that can be a big opportunity in this business event space. Some of these, as I mentioned, you might just want to look at the spaces themselves, but there's also options to have expert guides talk to the groups, curators to actually introduce art or to give a context for the visitors, conservators to talk about the significance of some of our sites. Port Arthur is one that does that. Takeaway mementos with photos. I mean, these experiences and opportunities really are bragging rights opportunities. So those mementos are important as well. Footage, signed memorabilia, pre or post opening access, that really is an element that most people just don't get access to these buildings without masses of people in them, pre-COVID of course. And then exclusive dining experiences. And aside from the NGV, which I mentioned before, there's a few other out of the box experiences that we've got imagery for a bit later on too. There's access to storytellers and some of the really colourful people who have changed Australia's cultural landscape. There's immersive experiences, not so much in terms of the take part in experience for BE, but certainly in terms of getting involved in something like Sovereign Hill and in costume. That's something that a bit of a larger group can take part in, and of course behind the scenes access. So if we go now to some of these experiences, and I'll take you first to Fremantle Prison. So Fremantle Prison is in Fremantle, in WA, and it too is World Heritage listed. It's a convict site built by convicts for convicts at the time of settlement. All of the settlement happened quite quickly in Fremantle or in Perth, and so they needed to find a space. But what you've got now is a space that can really lend itself to business events and is totally steeped in history. The experience we offer is art behind bars, and it really gives an interesting taste to some of the artwork that convicts have painted during their time there, and prisoners as well. but the space itself is a large space that can lend itself to gatherings as well. So then moving on to the WA Maritime Museum, this building is architecturally beautiful, and again, lots of large spaces and also areas for functions. There's a beautiful site just off to the side of where you're looking at the moment, looking out onto the Indian Ocean, where there can be drinks and canapes. It's an outdoor area, absolutely beautiful at sunset. But there's also function spaces in around that area as well. They do have catering on site as well. In terms of add-ons, there's opportunities to meet and greet with people. Part of our experiences, you can see an ex-serviceman there just going down the steps of the submarine. There's access to people who have had first-hand experience as part of sea life, as well as curators as well. I should mention quickly that the Maritime Museum is part of the WA Museum Collective, and opening in November is the WA New Museum, and that will be an amazing building that's in the centre of Perth. Again, we'll have spaces for functions, and definitely a wow factor, as this is a new museum that work's been underway on this facility for many years. So that's coming online in November. And then moving to our other WA member, the National Anzac Centre. That's in Albany, down the south of WA. There we go. So I won't talk too long on that, because Albany is probably somewhere that you don't have a whole lot of business events going to. But what I will mention is, I think John Dorr, for those of you who listened into the Wildlife Journeys presentation last week, there is another signature experience down this way too, as well as Nicole Mitchell, who's speaking next. There's some Discover Aboriginal experiences in around this area. So if it was a small group that was kind of wanting to have a sort of team building experience or something similar like this, the south of WA could well be somewhere to consider. The National Anzac Centre is a reasonably new museum, and it's built on the site where 41,000 soldiers went off to World War I. An absolutely beautiful building that you can see looks out over the bay where those soldiers left. So moving on now to our next member, and just heading to Adelaide. Adelaide Oval is our South Australian member. Many of you would be familiar with Adelaide Oval. I suppose a new element to note here is there will be an Adelaide Oval Hotel opening just in a number of weeks. We've got a blog on our website about that, and our website, I'll give you the details at the end. So all of a sudden we've got this fantastic facility, but also accommodation opportunities too. These guys can hold special functions. They have a number of function rooms. There's opportunities for intimate experiences, meeting with grounds people, making some of these experiences and the context of the visit more real as well. They've got a 100-year-old scoreboard, which you can see there, and it's one of the most pristine cricket grounds like this in the Southern Hemisphere, with a whole range of team building opportunities here, like which you would no doubt be aware of, the roof climb. One of the things that they've done for us is actually add on sort of a tasting plates and bubbly at the conclusion of the walk on the roof climb, just to add that sort of local produce element as well. So moving on now to our next member, Arts Centre Melbourne. I mentioned that before, and I haven't got any photos of the theatres here just because we saw it in the intro, but just in this bottom right hand corner, this is the John Truscott lounge. This is an example of just a handful of beautiful VIP lounges that they've got that you can do breakfasts in for their VIP experience that they offer for cultural attractions. The experience actually concludes in this beautiful space. So for smaller groups, this is absolutely an option, and for large groups, the stages are an option as well. a really flexible facility that can be used for meetings and incentives. And just to touch on that top right-hand corner there, they're also home to the Australian Performing Arts Collection store, which houses Australia's Performing Arts Collection, memorabilia and costumes, and really something that's not readily available for the general public. So for smaller groups, that's absolutely one of those bucket list experiences. So moving on again, this time we're still in Victoria, heading to Sovereign Hill. So Sovereign Hill, again, many of you would be familiar with Sovereign Hill. I just wanted to touch on some of their experiences. So the immersive experience I mentioned before is that you can actually get in costume and have your own night in the museum, like that top left-hand corner, and then dine with characters that really give you a context of what it would have been like in the 1850s on the goldfields. So again, one for smaller groups here, but a really out of the box experience. That centre photo is Aura. Now this can cater for large groups, and of course Ballarat, where Sovereign Hill is located, is also really well placed to hold meetings and have a number of accommodation and quite high level accommodation in Ballarat, and also meeting rooms. They're obviously looking at building their conference centre at the moment as well, but certainly a spot to look at. Aura can take quite large groups. Sovereign Hill can also hold events on site as well. And for smaller groups, and whether or not there's sort of family-centric offerings that you ever have, they've also got an experience called Wake Up with the Animals. So staying on site. Now their accommodation is 3-star. It's very comfortable, but staying on site and then getting up in the morning and feeding the animals. And those animals are animals that would have been on the goldfields, like goats and horses, ducklings, and those sort of things as well. Moving also still in Victoria, National Gallery of Victoria. I talked to those guys before, so I won't go into a huge amount of detail here, except to say that this is a really well-oiled organisation that is very adept at catering to your needs and customised experiences as well. They do it exceptionally well. Now moving on to the MCG. The MCG, another one that has multiple rooms that they can hold functions in of varying scales. They've now, as part of their experiences, given access to the actual ground of the G. This is a really special opportunity. Not many people get to walk on the hallowed turf of the G. Again, we just need to look at numbers for that, but the G more broadly does have multiple opportunities for experiences. Part of their experiences can be taking people behind the scenes, and I think one of the things that makes this so special is that they actually have members that take you on these experiences who have first-hand accounts of their memories of the G. And of course, just in March, they actually opened their newly refurbed National Sports Museum as well. So there's something new to see here as well. So moving on to the next slide. Museum of Old and New Art. This is the beautiful Mona, situated in Hobart. Absolutely unique experiences, definitely not new to the business event space, but certainly as we've got this more domestic approach, I think Tassie will become a place that people will really look to for new experiences, and new experiences is absolutely something that Mona is adept at doing and can absolutely have input into all number of events. They have a couple of restaurants, they have their gallery space, they have some bars on site, they have Marilla, their winery, they also have a brewery, they have their 5-star pavilions on site as well, with accommodation plans into the future as well. So yeah, definitely keep that one in mind, and we have more information about that on our site. If we can go to Port Arthur, the next slide now. I won't go into too much detail here, but to pick up on my point before, they can offer dining on site at Port Arthur Historic Site. It's a big site, as you can see from that aerial view. So again, adept at creating opportunities and unique opportunities for meetings and and incentives. It's only 90 minutes away from Hobart, so absolutely for a daytime experience, fairly accessible. Accommodation is coming online in around this area, but probably for large group, there's not a huge amount available. Groups would need to probably be scattered around this facility, so probably the 90-minute transfer is the way to go here. But that gives a bit of an insight. If we can just go to the next slide. And here we go, Sydney Opera House. Sydney Opera House obviously needs no introduction. I mean, this is known as an active human genius on the UNESCO World Heritage List. So it really doesn't get much more significant than that. What I did want to touch on was these guys, and this is part of the experience that they offer for us, that they can actually offer, and it goes up to groups of 100 plus. So absolutely well positioned for the business events market, but they can bring in a world-class opera performer to perform in front of a group and find a location on site for that group. You can see some of the photos here just to the right, and there's opportunities for meet and greets with those performers afterwards, as well as some of their backstage tours and the kind of introductions that they can provide to this truly significant building, as well as their restaurants on site as well. These guys have been doing some work on their business events offering, and I actually have a link that I'll send to Kelly and Adam after this that gives a link to some of those new opportunities. So please do take some time to look at that. Opera Australia. Opera Australia, again, also offer a whole range of premium experiences on site at the Sydney Opera House. You can see just some of the performances off to the right, but they have Handa outdoor on the Sydney Harbour, as well as offering opportunities for tickets and premium tickets into a performance. They can actually create performances if you have a big enough group. And again, really well equipped and very professional in this business event space. So we might move on now. We're heading off to Canberra now, and I'd love you just to, oh no, we're not. We're still in Sydney, my apologies. This is the National Maritime Museum. These guys are one of our newest members, and a lot of their collection is on site. They too have some big spaces for business events, and I know that they're not new to the business event space. So I suppose the thing I wanted to touch on today was Ina, and excuse me, this is Ina. She's an Edwardian steam yacht, or steamboat, I should say, and you can actually take groups as up to 30 onto the harbour. A really premium experience and a great way to see the harbour on this gorgeous steamboat, fully catered for. They can offer some interpretation on that space as well. A great way to conclude a day of meetings for smaller groups, as well as their on-site opportunities as well. So now I think we'll head to Canberra. So, and I do apologise, I'm quite short on time here. So our Canberra members, this is the National Museum of Australia. Some great facilities here, and these guys are doing some work in have been, but continue to kind of enhance their offering on site. Some big facilities for cocktails, sit-down functions, obviously beautiful architecture here at the National Museum of Australia, looking out on Lake Burley Griffin, as well as some sort of behind the scene things they can offer too. If we can go to the next slide. This is fabulous. The National Gallery of Australia have offered their facility to have a full degustation. They've highlighted 6 iconic artworks and then matched that with a degustation influenced by those artworks. So probably one that you're familiar with is Blue Poles down in that bottom right-hand corner, is the interpretation of Blue Poles, and an amazing dessert there. This is a really, and I think Canberra's absolutely in this domestic space and even beyond into international, worth looking at. It's the home of our national collections. Also in recent years, there's been some fantastic hotels come on site, as well as some new restaurants. So as a package, there's a whole heap to do in Canberra. If we can just move to the next slide. and we've got the War Memorial there. I did talk about them in their commemoration. They for smaller groups, can take you behind the scenes to really emotional, beautiful stories about our history, and something that I would absolutely encourage you to take a look at some of the offerings that the War Memorial has. And if we can go now to the Parliament House slide, Parliament House is one of the few parliaments in the world actually that offers behind the scenes experiences. So they offer the opportunity to dine like a visiting dignitary. They've got an amazing chef that sources local produce, has a really puts big significance on decreasing the carbon footprint on what he serves, is totally passionate and a great and very, very good at his craft. So you can actually go in for events here knowing that the hospitality will be top class. There are also options to look at their amazing Australian art collections, as well as their furniture collections as well, and a whole number of behind the scenes experiences here. Our last member is in Queensland, and that's the Qantas Founders Museum. Qantas Founders Museum, as the title suggests, celebrates Qantas's history, and Qantas is celebrating its centenary year this year. So they have just launched a luminescent project, which is a sound and light show at night time. As you can see from that bottom right-hand corner, they too can also host events and do that really nicely. And I think, again, as people are looking out of the box for different experiences, for meetings and incentives, Longreach is absolutely something to consider. A plane trip really from Brisbane or from Cairns, but you could really put together an itinerary for 3 days, because they have other like the Stockman's Hall of Fame and other attractions here in Longreach as well. So that concludes, and I won't, there is some footage which I won't share today, but I did want to touch on this, just what we've got. So footage we're putting online at the moment on the Tourism Australia site. We will have an event fact sheet, which we're working on with Tourism Australia at the moment, and that's coming out really soon. Our website has all of our details, and when the information is circulated, I'll also ask Kelly and Adam to kindly send my email address too, because any inquiries, please do send any inquiries that you might have about our collective to me as well. In terms of actually dealing with and organising events, we encourage you to go directly to the attractions. And again, those business event fact sheets will have those contact details as well. So Kelly, I might hand, the next slide is footage, but I think we're a little bit short on time, so we'll skip over that one. And Kelly, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Jane. That was very comprehensive. So let me just check if there's any questions. So can I ask one question? So in the first instance, if anyone has any queries about the collective, they'll come to you first.
Yes.
And then the actual organisation will be directly with the venues, the members.
Yep,
Great.
That's right.
Okay, any questions from anyone? Or we can carry on and take some more questions at the end. We don't have any at the moment, so we might move on. Thank you, Jane. And now we're moving on to Nicole with Discover Aboriginal Experiences. Thanks, Nicole.
Great, thanks very much, Kelly. And Jane, great to hear about all those cultural attractions which are so suited to the BE market. So fingers crossed here that we can click on to the next slides, and technology is on our side. So far, so good. Thanks for tuning in today. Whilst we're all meeting online and in different places around Australia, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we meet today. And I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So thank you for the opportunity to do that. So I work for Tourism Australia, and I'm very privileged to look after the Discover Aboriginal Experiences Collective, which I'm going to give you a speed dating run through today. I'm going to show you some examples of how these products work in the business event space. There's a lot in the collective to cover, so there's going to be some resources that I'm also going to share with you. So this is a little bit of a taste, if you like. But most importantly, I think to start with is, you know, we are all Australian and we do know our country, but sometimes I think we don't realise the value of the fact that we have the world's oldest living culture, dating back at least 60,000 years. And when you look at that beautiful coloured map there, that represents all the language and tribal groups of the Indigenous people in Australia. And originally there was about 250 different dialects of languages spoken, and still today there's 120 different dialects spoken, and it brings about great diversity. You know, the experience that you're having in Sydney might be vastly different to that if you're having an event at the conference centre in Darwin. So I think that's one for us to really, you know, pitch on, is our culture. The other thing is that, you know, with the businesses, conferences, corporate, we're all looking at ways to aid in the sustainability of our environment and our culture. And I think by including an Indigenous experience, we all know that tourism aids in the sustainability. It's the handing down of the stories from the elders to the new guides that are coming through. So hence why I think it's very important also to include. Our brand promise, a little bit about us at Discover Aboriginal Experiences. This is a collective where members have to apply to be part of. It's a very stringent selection in terms of getting into the membership, and we do that purposely to ensure we have the best of the best, showcasing this world's oldest living culture through the cornerstone of cultural insight, authenticity, and it's all about meaningful connection. Most importantly, all of the experiences are Aboriginal guided. So whether you're going out on country or you're bringing in the lovely Manuel here from Top Did into your conference or event or pre or post program, it's the person who owns the story telling the story. And they really give a deep connection to the land. They bring that environment, whether it's in Uluru, here to life, because every part of Australia is Aboriginal country, and every part of that country has a different story to be told. So if you're thinking about a conference or event, whether you're in Sydney, Melbourne, Uluru, Perth, to know a little bit more about the actual Indigenous part of that country that you're meeting on will add so much more value to the guest experience. All of the experiences are authentic and engaging with great diversity, and I'll talk a little bit more about this as we go through, but they are all very personalised, but they can be upscaled. And how they're upscaled is, you know, they actually put on more Indigenous guides, or we have breakout groups, so there's so many different ways. With the experiences in the collective, they are all trade-ready quality experiences. So they understand about the nuances of different sectors in the tourism and business events. They know about communication and commission levels and all those important things to us. Quickly here, an overview, and as I said, I'm not going to go through them all, but we have 45 businesses. And I guess from an FIT perspective, that represents 170 different experiences in the collective. Key takeout from this slide is the diversity of location. So we often have a preconceived idea that Indigenous experiences, you know, you might have to travel 3 hours down a dirt road and get to the community, but we've very much got some fantastic experiences in urban locations such as Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and close to Darwin, and Brisbane and Cairns. How we group all these experiences, there's a lot to get through, is really on the different types of experience you're going to have, whether you want an adventure or culinary. Culinary is a really interesting one that I'm seeing a lot of increase interest on, particularly from media, but also flowing through to trade partners, of having, you know, a tasting, or, you know, a speaker coming, a chef coming to a conference or event, or an art activation, or, as I mentioned, urban. Obviously, nature and wildlife, that's on the fabulous Yellow Waters that can take a capacity of 200 people. And our bush and outback and our immersive journeys are more from probably our pre and post program partners. I've got a short video here that I'd like to show to you. Hopefully it doesn't buffer too much. But the reason for this is really to have a look at the diversity experiences and all around Australia.
Welcome to the adventure. The adventure is to show and share our culture. Every plant, every animal is our family. They are our ancestors. They live, they grow, so we can live and grow. We are all connected. connect our mind, body, and soul to the land. We dance. We share the land. We share this journey. Join us for the adventure. Our country is waiting for you.
Oops, we're playing that again. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video, and certainly when I'm overseas and think about that video, it makes us homesick. So we've got some beautiful assets and landscapes and locations around Australia, all with that cultural heritage. So how do we work those into programs and itineraries? I mean, when we're looking at itineraries for pre and post, the thing that we really encourage is flavouring the program, flavouring the itinerary. You know, if it's a conference, you may start with a welcome to country and a cultural insight talk. At a breakout session, you may look at having an art activation. At the evening function, you may do some Indigenous flavoured canapes with perhaps some dances or some music or a cultural ceremony. So it's really about putting those touch points throughout. And then, of course, if you're doing, you know, pre and post programs, it's offering those type of experiences. So I think for business, you know, events and opportunities, I think the key thing that we have to focus on is, you know, we have a unique location for some of these conferences. You know, you might be like Sand Dune Adventures, which is just 2 hours north of Sydney, has just built a new conference centre that has a capacity, I think, of 450 seated. So you can have guests out on a quad bike or out on a Hummer tour, you know, in a morning tea break, learning a bit about culture, you know, or having a look at the conference centre is actually set on 20 acres of land. So there you go, you have this unique location that you can hold a conference. Obviously breakouts with art activations, social programs, corporate retreats is a really big one that's coming through with Indigenous experiences. So what I want to do is actually run through a few of these in the time that we've got left. Just touching on the fact that all experiences can be tailored. So you will see in a lot of our collateral will say, you know, 4 to 30 guests. As I mentioned before, it's that upscaling with additional guides. So for example, Yellow Waters Cruises takes 200, we've got a snorkeling tour of the Great Barrier Reef takes 65, and Jabberkai takes 200 passengers or guests. In New South Wales, I'm just going to touch on a couple here. The Australian Museum is an interesting one because they've just undergone a $57.5 million refurb that they're putting 2 great halls in, which are for large exhibitions, but also targeting the conference and event market. And they've got the Woronara Indigenous guides there and the biggest collection of Indigenous art and artefacts in Australia. So there you can already see a great tie-in. Or Margaret Campbell here in Sydney, she does a 1.5 hour walking tour, but the actual base of her business is also speaking at conferences and welcome to countries and corporate education and corporate retreats. So, and the Royal Botanic Gardens also does smoking ceremonies. So there's so much flexibility in the type of experiences. And a lot of these experiences have been working this market for some time. Sand Dune Adventures, I mentioned before, with a new cultural centre, and Dwayne there is often brought in from Nara for conference speakers as well. He's largely involved in the education sector, particularly of youth. So if you're looking for someone for a conference and a speaker, we can also help you out with that. Heading into the Northern Territory, Maracu Arts is an absolute favourite. I've used them for conference activations when I used to run events. And they've got a fantastic, they're a not-for-profit organisation. They work with artists from as far as like Docker River and out to the New South Wales border, and they do dot painting class. That's their regular FIT product. But if you've got a conference, you can bring them into your conference, whether it be Sydney or Melbourne. I actually took them to Salta in Argentina. We did an art activation where everyone at the conference participated in doing dot art. We raffled one of the art pieces. The artists also made small art pieces, and it created this amazing hub at morning tea of people engaging and learning about culture. Another really nice thing that they do is they're big with corporates on designing their logos for conferences, or the conference logo. Obviously, you know about Voyages with the 2 theatres and the 350 capacity for external, and also they can bring in bush tucker talks and Indigenous experiences. Alice Springs, we've got Bob Taylor there, who's a fantastic outback chef if you're looking at doing an outdoor dinner, or in Kings Canyon. And I'm sorry, I'm flipping through these. Putikul, I wanted to point out, Putikul, I've been to some fantastic experiences they've done on the grounds of the Darwin Convention Centre. So they're located just 45 minutes from Darwin on the Adelaide River wetlands, and they do a lot also with cruise ships. So just to show you that adaptability of experience. Obviously, Kakadu and Arnhem Land corporate retreat, really, really popular, is Lirawi Tourism and Burma Island Bano up in East Arnhem Land. As I mentioned before, Yellow Waters with Kakadu Tourism would be my pick out of this slide for the BE market. Nipmuc, fantastic. I once held a conference on the banks of the Catherine Gorge there at Nipmuc, and it was amazing because you had people out on kayaks. We set up permanent huts and tents as the conference area, and you had that whole cultural immersive experience. You can bring in Top Dig for some art classes, so you can really get that unique element of what is quintessentially Australian. And you're pretty safe with weather having outback events at particular times of the year, but not December, for example. Heading into Queensland just quickly, we've got a wealth of experiences in far north Queensland, and many of these you're possibly already working with. One that's new that I'd like to point out is Dreamtime Dive and Snorkel. That is the Indigenous guided Great Barrier Reef trip. So to be out on the reef in itself is an amazing experience, but the journey out to the reef and the back, and whilst you're there, you know, engaging, you're having a go at making a fire, you're chatting to the guides, they're telling you about the spiritual stories of the reef. Another was this Flames of the Forest, which was this amazing dinner out from Port Douglas. You literally are walking through this beautiful rainforest. You cannot even see the location set up, and you hear the sounds of the didgeridoo, and you're following that didgeridoo to your dinner. So I've just talked about 2 there. We've got art classes, we've got Javakai, which can do a more immersive, and they've also got their evening experience. Moving along, this one's a really good one, particularly if you're looking at conferences. It's halfway between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and they're a theatre style performance in the evening, but they also hire their space for private use. And I think they can take about 200 theatre style and about 110 banquet style in the restaurant, or you can do an outdoor event. So, and then you can have the cultural show, you can have it for an hour, you can have it for 15 minutes, you can have a welcome to country, everything can be tailored. South Australia, the famous Wilpena Pound, again, probably more of a pre-post or taking your conference out there. And heading into Tasmania, we've got this amazing experience, which is this 3-day, 4-night Wukalina walk, 100% Aboriginal guided walk on the Bay of Fires. So if you've been doing a conference or event in Launceston or Hobart and looking for something to really immerse in the environment you're in, this is the one to do. They've got this beautiful purpose-built accommodation, as you can see there. Heading into Victoria in Melbourne, again, we've got the Royal Botanic Gardens, as you can see the smoking ceremony. And I think it's such a respectful way for us as Australians to start our conferences as well. Melbourne Museum, the Bunjalaka Gallery, is a great place to hold an event. I had an event, I think there was 350 people within the gallery, and it was just amazing because you're within this, you know, cultural insight area. You've got the guides, but you've also got the beautiful theming and lighting of being in a museum, as with cultural attractions. And then Koori Heritage Trust can also do guided walks around Melbourne for groups and really understanding that urban experience. Heading into regional Victoria, again, a more touring, stop off on the Great Open Road for the dormant volcano area there. And heading into Western Australia, these two experiences in Perth, and these two people in particular, Walter and Dale here, are legendary in the conference and event space. Dale has a beautiful way of telling bush tales and cultural tales, but she's also a specialist in cuisine. So she comes in and has started her business. It was just previously based at the gallery, Mallinup Gallery, but now she does experiences at Munduna State, which is lovely, or she literally goes wherever the event is. So you can have something personal, you can have something on a grander scale. She's one of those people you could listen to for hours, as is Walter, who'll do anywhere around Perth, Kings Park, Rottnest Island. For regional Western Australia, it's that getting out. So for example, if you've got something down in Margaret River, why not include an experience there with Kumul Dreaming with Josh? Taking your group into the caves and listening to the didgeridoo in the caves is just amazing. Or we've got experiences up at Broome, Monkey Mia region, Pilbara region, all around. So I've done a really quick whip through, and I think we've got a few more minutes. And as I said, there's 45 products, and I've probably touched on about 8 to 10. So what I wanted to provide you with, we've got this fantastic resource called our portfolio. And in that portfolio, it lists all of the experiences that are available on FIT basis, but it also spells out for you now if it's for FITs or groups. So if you see on the right there, it says caters for, and I'd say that probably almost all of the experiences will in some way or another cater for group experiences. We've also got our beautiful pictorial brochure, and most importantly, just about to be launched shortly, is actually our business events fact sheet. And that will give you all the contact details. So the way it works, similar to what we were talking before with cultural attractions, I'm your central point of contact, can absolutely help with recommendations, referrals, what might suit, if you're looking at a couple of products, what speaker might be particularly suited for what you're looking for. But then what we do is connect you with the businesses to transact directly with those businesses. News and updates, love it if you'd sign up to get updated. Having worked on your side of the fence, information is kept to short, sharp and targeted towards you and what you need to know. Content. Now, I've included this one here particularly for the business events because I often get questions like, what is a welcome to country? What is respectful? Why do we have the oldest living culture? You know, what can I talk about? What's the way to talk about Indigenous culture? In this media kit, there's a whole heap of background on that and different stories. And we've also got a storyteller flyer, which, as I said, those characters like Manuel or Capes or Helen or Juan there, and those speaker personalities, and reading a little bit about their life and their business can give you some insight and ideas as well. All of these are able to be downloaded as well from our corporate website, which I'll give you that address at the end of the presentation. Importantly, you know, nothing sells a conference event or incentive like having great assets on your marketing material. We've done a photo shoot. We've had over 500 images available to you to download free off our image gallery. Also, we've got that video that you saw. We've got individual videos on each of the experiences on our video website. And we've also got shorter versions of the show reel. And also there's a guide that can be downloaded on how to search for the videos, just to make it easier. Corporate website, this is the one to take down or to remember. If you want everything that I've spoken about, whether it be the brochure, the media kit, the portfolio, it's tourism.australia.com/Aboriginal. So in that quick, I think 25 minutes there, what I want, I guess the key messages to take away is that we do have the world's oldest living culture. And I think all of us really need to showcase that and also have some responsibility as Australians in the sustainability of that culture. But also it's a real point of difference for events, even for Australians. You know, I've got so many people since COVID who are going, you know, what can I do that's a cultural experience? And we've been providing recommendations, and they're saying, you know, I never really knew this existed within my own country. You know, the perceptions about culture are often about sort of dance, didgeridoo and boomerang and art. So you can see whether you're on a kayak, you're on a quad bike, you know, there's fishing adventures, there's so much to see and do. So, and it's that storytelling, which is what conferences and events are all about. It's connection, it's storytelling, and it's about engagement, which aligns so beautifully with Indigenous culture. Just a reminder, located across Australia in urban and regional locations. And again, that map reference guide is located on that website. So just after that, I guess just want you to look at flavouring any type of your business event experiences, whether it's a corporate retreat, it's a conference, it's a speaker opportunity, it's a breakout, it's a, hey, let's wake up our audience at lunchtime and take them on a walk around Sydney Harbour with Margaret Campbell. Whatever the case may be, I think there's some real opportunities, and look forward to seeing those coming through in programs for Australia and connecting with these trade-ready businesses. Here is my contact details. Please reach out to me and obviously the business events team within Tourism Australia at any time for any further information. So thank you. Apologies for the rush, but hopefully that gives you a taste of what's on offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. That was fabulous. A really great opportunity, and I think some great product all around Australia. And, you know, you may have heard of, you know, some of those experiences, but there's a really unique and wide range of products all around Australia that are really ideal to be part of any business events program. So we appreciate your time, Nicole, and also thank you to Jane. Now, Nicole, I do have one question for you, saying great presentation. I'd love to know how your department engages and maintains relationships with Indigenous communities to create experiences like these for business events.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good question. And it's a bit of a journey, actually. So I guess in terms of my department is me and the Signature Experiences team. And a lot of us in the team have worked in different places around Australia. So like Karen, who heads up Signature Experiences, had a lot of time in the Northern Territory. I've worked for Tourism Northern Territory. So we've worked on the ground, grassroots with these businesses. Going back 10 years ago, we started a program called the Indigenous Tourism Champions Program, which was a joint initiative to develop Indigenous businesses and also to market them. So that was combined with Indigenous Business Australia. As part of that, I was actually a mentor for about 4 years with these businesses. So I've spent time out on country, gaining their trust, developing relationships. And also I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that the whole focus is on quality and you know, exceptional experiences. And that's why we have a constant engagement and constant communication with the businesses, both on a day-to-day, but also in their business. So we're with the community. We took what we call Aboriginal culture tours, who I mentioned before. I worked with the community. They were looking at putting accommodation on site. So we looked and thought, well, where can we do that that respectfully suits them, but also suits their target audience? There's no point doing it down a trail of an hour and a half because some clients won't go there. Can we adjust it to this area? So it's really that working together to have that relationship with the businesses. Hopefully I answered that okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions? If you want to just put them in the Q&A box, we're happy to answer them. We've got a couple of minutes left. Otherwise, I think the next steps for us, I'm really delighted that we had a chance to, you know, to host this webinar today. I think the Signature Experiences collection of really unique product around Australia is a great opportunity for business events. And I think, you know, these two today, particularly the Indigenous Experiences, there's such opportunity around Australia. And, you know, hopefully you've learnt some new things or some new product that you'd like to find out more about. And similarly with the cultural attractions, while some of those venues, you know, are experienced in hosting business events, it's those, you know, it's the unique opportunities and experiences that are beyond what's, you know, a standard product that really offer that bespoke experience to enhance any program. So thank you all for joining us today. We don't have any other questions. So ladies, to Nicole and Jane, thank you very much. We will ensure that you get a copy of this webinar, everyone, as a follow-up, and we do have some business events fact sheets coming up shortly. So if there's any queries or you've got any groups you'd like more information about, please feel free to contact all of us. And we do have our third Signature Experiences webinar tomorrow with Ultimate Wineries of Australia and Great Golf Courses. So hopefully you can join us for that as well. Thanks everyone. Have a good day.